And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Toy Story Obstacle and Adventures, a cooperative deck building game. Long name for a deck building game though for kids, based on possibly the most successful, at least critic-wise, the most successful series of cartoons ever. Like, you can argue over which of the Land Before Time movies is best, but people can easily probably name one that's worse. When it comes to Toy Story, there's 4 of them, as of me recording this, and people love all 4 of them. And there's arguments over which one is the best. A groundbreaking thing, changing animation forever, but also something that's enjoyed by both kids and adults, and they're fantastic. Can you take that and make a good game about it? I had heard about this, I saw it, it looked neat the first time I ran across this, but I was very curious. I had heard that this is going to be using the Harry Potter deck building game mechanisms, and it does, but I wanted to see if that would bring it to life some. I like a deck building game that I can play with my kids. This has a progression to it, follows all the different movies that are out thus far. Let me show you. What players are going to be doing is you're going to be playing through 6 different adventures, although you can play these over and over again. In fact, the game has folders and dividers so that once you're done with an adventure, you don't have to put them back in these boxes. You start with Adventure 1, which is the biggest because it has most of the components for the game, and then Adventures 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 will add new cards and new things. I'm just going to be showing, for purposes of this review, just the stuff in box Adventure 1 to give you an idea of how the game works, and I'll mention maybe some other things in these, but I don't want to spoil it. This is the setup for Scenario 1. Each player is going to choose a character to play. You're going to be either Rex, or you're going to be Woody, or you're going to be Buzz Lightyear, or you're going to be Bo Peep. Jessie is also in the game, and she's going to show up in Mission 2. No big surprise there. She showed up in Movie 2. And so players are going to be picking their character. You're going to start with 10 health on the character, and then you have a place here essentially to keep insight and imagination. These are the 2 different currencies of the game. You also have your own draw pile and your discard pile. Each player is going to start with a very specific card. So here's the ones for Rex. You can see they have Rex's name at the bottom, and you're going to be shuffling these and drawing these cards. Rex also has a special ability, which is pretty much nothing. But in one of the boxes you open up, you will be getting more specialized special abilities for the characters. Now, the way to win this game is to defeat the final card here. In the first mission, for example, here, it's Escape from Sid. The same thing as it was in Toy Story 1. And you can see the reward here is the toys win. And there's one of these cards going to be available at a time, although you can see there's spots for 2 or 3 of these cards to be out at any given point. These cards are going to cause something bad to happen to everyone. So here, when it's your turn, the active toy is going to lose 1 health. If you defeat this, then there's a reward. All toys gain 1 insight and 1 imagination and 1 health. And then there's a number down here, 6 insight. That's how much it takes to get rid of this card. And that is essentially how the game is going to work. When it's a player's turn, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to turn over a danger card. Something bad is going to happen to you. Here, the active toy loses 2 health. So you do that first. There's going to be a little track here. This track's going to be different based on which adventure you're playing and how many players are in the game. Where the token is, it's going to tell you how many cards you draw from that danger pile. And so in Mission 1, it's only ever going to be 1 card, but that number is going to increase. So you'll draw those, and sometimes cards will make the token move along this track. If this token gets to the end before the toys have won, then you lose. So that's the main way to lose, is for that to happen. So player is going to draw a danger card. They're going to deal with that. They're also going to look at these cards and deal with them. So for example, on turn 1, the active toy is going to lose 3 health, 2 from that card and 1 from this one. But then you're going to be able to play the cards in your hand and use those. So let's say 3, 4, 5 here. I have Woody's cards in my hand here. So Woody can play this playful, which gives him imagination, imagination, imagination. This gives him an insight. For each army man played this turn, get imagination, but I didn't play any more army men. And this gives me another imagination, and army men cost 1 less. Sadly, there are no army men available over here. This is a place where there are cards available to buy. And there's always going to be 6 different cards, because if you draw from the top of this deck a card that's already out, it will go on top of the same card. So you can see there's 2 cooperative cards. So that allows players to buy these cards and add them to their deck. So I might want to buy Ham, for example, and he's going to cost 4 imagination. And he gives me 1 insight, lets me keep unused tokens at the end of my turn. So that might be a useful card to buy. You can buy cards from over here, which will be placed in your discard pile using imagination. You can also take insight and throw it here so that it's slowly going to accumulate and defeat this card. But basically the catch of the game is any insight and imagination that you get in each round, you have to spend that round. You can't keep and save them for future rounds, unless of course you have played Ham, who lets you keep them, but that's an exception to the rule. So when buying new cards, I'm going to have to decide, do I want to buy Cautious, which gives me 2 insight? Or maybe Enthusiastic, which gives me 1 insight and gains me a health back? Or maybe Legs, which gives me an imagination, and if I'm forced to discard that for some reason, me and my neighbors each gain 1 insight. And there's a lot of cards that do that in the deck. So you can see, for example, there are items, choose 1, gain 2 imagination or draw a card. There are traits, I like this one here, gain 1, 1, or 1, your choice. There are friends, so there's Lenny, yep, and there's army men. Gain 2 if you overcome a hazard. If I manage to complete one of these hazard cards, then me and my neighbors each gain 2 health. So speaking of health, your toy is never going to die in this game. Yes, we're keeping track of your health on this track here, but if you get down to the end, if you are shelved eventually, then you discard all your chip pieces and half the cards in your hand. The token moves 1 on the track up here, and you reset your health to 10 at the end of a turn. So it's bad for everybody, but you essentially respawn and come back again. And that's it. When this is finished, it goes to discard pile. You draw a new one, and like I said, there could be multiples in later missions, and eventually you're going to get to this last one, defeat it, and win the game. Or this token's going to get to the end here, in which case players lose. So the big question is, what do you do when you're done with all 6 of these? So you're going to go through this really well done rule book, explains how the rules play. And then at the end, it kind of gives you how advanced players go. And if you play with 5 players, you start with adventurers 1 and 2 right away so that you have Jesse. You can keep track of your adventures and the names, etc. And then you can store the rules here. And as I said, there are different cards here that let you keep all the cards for different characters behind them. The card quality is really well done. I love the artwork in this game. As far as I know, this is absolutely original artwork for the game. There are stills and stuff, I think, from the movies, but the art on these is just fantastic. You know, Buzz Lightyear, each of them has kind of a different motif here to how they look. And I really like that. The cards look good. All the different stuff from the movies all the way up to the newest movie is in the game. It stores very nicely in the box. Overall, I'm very happy with this. Now, when it comes to a game that's using an engine that's in another game, so the Harry Potter game, I haven't compared them. It doesn't feel like a one-for-one, the same exact things in one game or the same exact in another. But the basic mechanisms are very similar between the games. But that doesn't matter that much. I think you just pick the one that the theme you know is better in that regard. And this is, since there is that kind of game is used in 2 systems, does the theme work really well? I think it works better here than it does in Harry Potter. Harry Potter's fine, but I like Toy Story better myself, obviously, as a theme. But what I really like is the whole point of Toy Story is friends coming together to stand together against a common enemy. And that's pretty much how it is in each of the movies in various forms. And it works really well here. It's really fun to play these characters. It's really fun for the kids. That deck I showed you that has different friends and things in it, as each game comes by, more and more stuff gets added to that deck. And it's fun because you're like, oh yeah, there's that character. Oh yeah, I remember that person. And it's entertaining and it's a fun working together. Now, the difficulty of the game goes up for sure. The difficulty and the complexity of the game goes up as you go up to number 6. I would say 3 is where you notice it because 1, I think you'd have to work really hard to lose the first box. I'm sure it's possible, but it would be pretty hard to lose. It's a good tutorial. 2 is a little bit more, back and forth, but still fairly easy. 3 is where the difficulty starts ramping up, and you can lose 4, 5, and 6, right? But at the same time, you've played a lot in one together, and you can just replay each mission. I really like the fact that when it's done, you don't have to put everything back in the boxes. You can just play with the different rules for the different sets, and it doesn't feel like, oh, we're done, so I'm bored with this game. No, instead, it just feels like 6 is the absolute full game, and it kind of teaches you to get to that point. But if you think that there's too much complexity, you could play at level 3 or something like that. And I think that works well for everyone involved. I played this with my children. They liked it. They enjoyed it. It was easy for them to jump into. I played it solo. The rules don't necessarily say you can play it solo. You can just play 2 different characters, so that does work too. And it scales pretty well. I mean, yes, the more players, the less you're doing, but you're kind of working together and you're having a good time and saying, oh, come on. And there's a lot of cards in the deck that give stuff to your neighbors. And so there's that concept, I'm playing this card, and it helps you both out, and everyone's excited about that. It brings together the theme, I think, strongly that way, if, the pictures and the artwork and stuff help the theme. But again, that strong cooperative nature of this makes it really fun. This is a solid family weight game. People who are die-hard strategists will probably maybe be less involved in this because you might want to play things like Dominion or other more, involved deck building games. But I found that this one is sweet. It's light. It just has a fun family level weight thing, and yet I could play it with other adults and have a good time too, because Toy Story is ageless in a sense that it works for all ages, and the original Toy Story came out years ago and yet still stands up over the test of time, and I think this game captures that in a box. So definitely one that I would recommend. That's Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures, a cooperative deck building game. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment, you got a friend. Approved!